Hello, Year 3. Today we're going to be revising Unit 1, Living Things. We're going to need to make sure that we have our pupils book and our activity books with us, as we will be using both. So first, can we please open to page number 4? We're going to be revising What Do Living Things Need, section A. If we have a look through these pages until page number 7, we can see that living things need food, water, and air. Now, let's have a look on page 7 and 8 and see if we can do the exercises. So, for the first exercise on page number 7, what we want to do is we want to try and solve these riddles on what living things need. Let's read them. A, you cannot see it, taste it, or smell it, yet you cannot live without it. Which one of those 3 things that we need do you think that might be? Okay, and then B, it falls from the sky and flows in rivers and drains. Without it, the land would be dry and living things will die. Now, which one of those 3 things would it be? Food, water, or air? What do you think? And then C, plants make it, chefs cook it, you eat it. What is it? So here are the answers. A, of course, is air, something that you cannot see, taste, or smell, but you have to have it to live. B is water, and C is food. Okay, so next, let's open to page number 8. Let's circle the things that need air, food, and water, and let's put an X through the things that don't. So let's see. The chick. Does it need air, food, and water? Yes, it does. It's a living thing. What about the teddy bear? No, it's not a living thing. It's a stuffed animal, so it does not need air, food, and water. And last, the plant. Yes, it is. The plant needs air, food, and water because it's a living thing. Okay, so now we've done that, we're going to move on to section B. What can living things do? So we know that they can do certain things. We know that living things can move by themselves. That's page 9. Page 11, we know that living things can reproduce. They can make copies or babies. And then we know on page 13 that living things can grow. On page 15, we know that living things can sense and respond. But what we haven't got here are some of the extra things from Mrs. Gren. Can you guys remember Mrs. Gren? Let's see. So M in Mrs. Gren is for movement. All living things move, animals move around to get from place to place, and plants grow and turn towards the light. The first R is for respiration. All living things respire. All living things release energy from their food by respiration. Most organisms need oxygen to do this. S is for sensitivity. All living things are sensitive. This is the sense and respond one. Every living thing can detect changes in their surrounding. G is for growth. All living things grow. Animals grow from babies to adults, and seeds grow into plants. The second R is for reproduction. All living things reproduce. Animals have young. Some of them give birth to live young, some of them lay eggs. Plants produce seeds from which more plants grow. E is for excretion. All living things excrete. Waste products are removed from the body. Both plants and animals have to get rid of excess gas and water. And the last one, N for nutrition. All living things need nutrition. Animals eat food in order to get nutrients, whereas plants produce their own food by turning sunlight into energy. This is called photosynthesis. And where do they do it? In their leaves. So now we're going to try out the exercises on page 18. So if everyone could open to page 18, and we're going to fill in the exercises, and then I'm going to show you the answers to see if you got them correct. Let's have a go. So here's the exercises on page 18. What we want you to do is to fill in the blanks. So the first question about Intan. Intan has a teddy bear, and how is Intan different from her bear? So the column that has Intan in it, it says she is a thing. She needs and She can by herself, and to changes around her. Now in the Intan teddy bears column, it says it is a thing. It does not need or It cannot by itself, or and to changes around it. So if you haven't filled this in yet, please pause the video now and I'll show you the answers in the next minute. So here are the answers. She is a living thing. She needs food, water, and air. She can move by herself. She can reproduce, grow, and sense and respond to changes around her. Whereas the teddy bear, it is a non-living thing. It does not need food, water, or air. It cannot move by itself, grow, reproduce, or sense and respond to changes around it. Now, number 2, this question is explain why the water in a river is a non-living thing, although it flows or moves. Now, the reason is it's a non-living thing is because it does not do all the 7 life processes, the Mrs. Gran 7 life processes. Okay, so guys, now we're going to move on to section C on page 19, which is what kinds of living things are there. So we studied 4 different types of living things. We studied animals, plants, fungi, and bacteria. So we need to remember that each of them have different features. For example, on page 20, animals come in different shapes and sizes, and they have different parts such as beaks, wings, legs, fins, tails. There's lots of different things that they have, and they can move in different ways as well. So one of the main things we need to remember, though, at the bottom of page 20, animals cannot make their own food. They need to eat plants or other animals, or both. And also we need to remember that they can move from place to place by themselves. So next we looked at page 21 and we were looking at plants. Flowering plants are the ones that are bearing fruit and flowers, and non-flowering plants are the ones that do not bear fruit and flowers. So we have the parts of the plant. We have the features are roots, stems, leaves, flowers, and fruits. Now, the big things to remember here are plants cannot move from place to place by themselves. Now, they can only move parts. They sense and respond, remember? And then the big one, plants can make their own food. Can you remember where? I think we studied it in chapter 4, flowering plants. Can you remember which part of the plant makes the food? Can you remember? I can remember. It's the leaves. Are you correct? And then moving on to page 22, we studied fungi as well. So there's different kinds of fungus or fungi. We looked at mushrooms, mold, and yeast. So mushrooms, we all know mushrooms, yum, yum, yum. Well, some of us don't like mushrooms. Now, while fungi might look like plants, they don't have the same features. They don't have leaves, stems, or roots. And one of the big things is most cannot move from place to place by themselves. And they also cannot make their own food. They take in food from other living things or dead things such as rotting logs. And some type of fungi, such as yeast, are very tiny and they can only be seen through a microscope. And then the last living thing we studied was bacteria. So at the moment, with the current coronavirus stuff going on, virus is a different type of thing that makes us sick, but a bacteria is also another type of thing that can make us ill. But can you remember, some of them are helpful? Who remembers what type of bacteria was good for us? It was yogurt. Yogurt holds bacteria inside it as well, and it's good for our stomach. So, bacteria can be found in the air, on land, in water, inside us, inside plants, and they have different shapes. They can be round, long, thin, and also spiral like a coil. Now, some bacteria, some can move from place to place by themselves, some can make their own food, and some other bacteria take in food from where they live. Some bacteria, as we said, can make us sick. They can be harmful for our health, but also some are beneficial for our health as well. Some are useful. Here we have page 24 and 25. What I want you to do is I want you to complete the exercises. On page 24, you see 4 things: a rabbit, a rose plant, a rain tree, and a mushroom. On page 25, I want you to use the key and put them into the correct location. For A, which living thing can move from place to place on the left? On the right, cannot move from place to place. And for B, on the left, which living thing can make its own food? And on the right, which living thing cannot? So let's pause, fill in the answers, and come back for the answers. For question 2, I want you to write the group that each living thing belongs to. Is it a bacteria? Is it an animal? Is it a fungi? Or is it a plant? Pause and fill in your answers, please. We're on to the last section of living things. Section D, what kinds of animals are there? We went from page 26 until 32, I think it was. Now, we studied 4 different types. We studied fish, insects, birds, and mammals. And then we had to identify each one of them had different features. And it meant that we could classify them into those 4 different groups. So, for example, we had fish. Fish can be identified by their body covering, which is scales. Their body parts, they have gills and fins, which are unique, and gill covers. And most of them reproduce by laying eggs, but there are those odd ones out, which, like the molly, reproduce by giving birth to live young. Insects have a hard outer covering, which is also called an exoskeleton. They each have 3 body parts, 6 legs, and a pair of antennae. Now the body parts you can remember by the song. Can you remember? Head, thorax, abdomen, abdomen. And most of them reproduce by laying eggs. Birds have feathers as their outer covering. They each have a beak, 2 legs, and 2 wings, though not all of them can fly, such as the ostrich and the penguin. They reproduce by laying eggs with a hard shell. Mammals are the last type of animal that we studied in the book. They have hair or fur. Most of them reproduce by giving birth to live young, though there are those few exceptions as well, such as the spiny anteater and the platypus, who lay eggs. And We know that they're mammals because the adult females produce milk to feed their young. Now, can you remember the other two groups of animals that we studied other than those four? It was amphibians and reptiles. So let's have a quick review of them as well. First, let's have a look at amphibians. They can be classified by their outer covering, which is a moist skin. The amphibians that have long tails usually have claws, and the ones without tails usually have strong back legs. And as you can see from the frogs and the toads, sometimes they have webbed feet as well to help them swimming. Reptiles lay eggs, and the little hatchlings have gills for breathing, and then they go through a change where they grow their limbs and their lungs, and they end up growing to look like their appearance. Reptiles, on the other hand, have hard scales as their body covering, and if not, sometimes they also have a hard shell. They also cannot chew their food, so they have to rip their food to eat it, so they need sharp teeth. Reptiles also lay eggs with a soft shell. Let's look at exercise 1. A fly and an owl are both animals. A. Which group does each animal belong to? Now these are from the book, so it would be either an insect, a bird, a fish, or a mammal. B. Describe 3 ways in which they're similar. This could be body coverings, it could be body parts, the way they move, the way they reproduce, and then describe 3 ways in which they are different using the same criteria. So here are the answers for exercise 1. The fly is an insect and the owl is a bird. B. The ways they are similar, there are actually quite a lot. Both the fly and the owl have wings, they have legs, they both need air, food, water. They can move by themselves from place to place. They both reproduce, they both lay eggs, they both sense and respond, they grow. So you could choose quite a lot for here. And then for C, the differences, the fly has 6 legs, but the owl has 2 legs. The owl has feathers, but the fly does not. The owl has a beak, the fly does not. The fly has antenna, the owl does not. There's lots of different things that you could say here. For exercise 2, look at each of the pictures, animal X, Y, and Z. A, identify the body coverings of the animals. And B, which group does the animal belong to? So, animal X, those are feathers, so it should be a bird. Animal Y, they look like soft scales, so it's a fish. And animal Z is a mammal because that's fur. Now we're on to final review. So if you could go to the page 12 in your activity book, and then I want you to complete the review section there. Come back and check the answers on the sheet. I will post it here. And if you get any of the questions wrong, I want you to go back into your pupil's book and try and find the correct answer. Here are the answers. Please self-mark and go back and check any you got incorrect. I hope you had a good day. See you next time.